connect. Yes, we are connecting. I am streaming it to my personal YouTube channel as opposed to the Criminal Kid channel. There was some kind of error with getting it going on that one. So forgive the slow. Oh boy, I do not want to see it live. If anyone wants to confirm with me that it is in fact working on the
what's your personal channel?
It's
It is
Alicia
working.
Marie. Yep, sorry. Let me get back here.
There's a slight delay though.
Yeah, it should be about a 20-second delay, but I think it's working. Okay, so now maybe we can get this party started. We're about 5 minutes late. Thank you, wonderful people, for joining me for this live session. And thanks, Dave, Chris, Mike, Rob, for showing up, especially at the beginning, so we can introduce ourselves and the album and then get to the listening part. So the way that this session is going to work is we're going to talk a little bit, listen, talk a little bit, listen, go back and forth in a very kind of casual, laissez-faire manner. Some of the people who you see on your screens will be here for like different amounts of time. So probably by the end of it, you might be stuck with just me as we go through the entire emotional roller coaster of this album. I do find that the second half takes a turn for the moodier, whereas the first half is much like kind of rockier, a little bit more aggressive. So I'm expecting this to be about an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on how verbose we're all feeling. It's possible that we'll start getting incredibly nerdy about some weird music theory concept for half an hour. I'm going to just let the universe unfold as it will. And I feel somewhat inspired towards this universe type commentary because of Dave's intergalactic background. So Dave, I'd love if you introduced yourself. Welcome to the party.
Hi, yeah, my name is David Roman, and this is this intergalactic spaceship is Roman Empire Studios behind me. This is Studio A over here. I'm the I guess I contributed to the album with some music as well as mastered the album. So that's and I guess I was one of the founding members of Criminal Kid, and I came up with the name. So
yeah, that was when, like 2009, 2008. 2008.
I don't even
14
know.
14 years ago, Dave.
I'm old. That's all there is to it.
At least.
At least.
That's insane. Well, Mike, you were also part of OG Criminal Kid before I ever entered the picture. So what is your memory of 2008 being in a band with Dave?
Oh, mine. It was awesome. It was a very different band. I still remember, and this is the first memory that I'll just talk very briefly about, but when they were asking me to be the drummer, they had the name of another drummer on a whiteboard or piece of chart paper or something hanging up, I think in Dave's living room, and it had this drummer's names, pros and cons, and it had me, pros and cons, and then it said drum machine.
So you just barely beat the drum machine.
I think I was the second choice, but I beat out the drum machine and became first, obviously. So
you made it in there and you've been along for the ride ever since. So as he mentioned, Michael's the drummer. He's the only original member who basically contributed to the whole album. So every single track we listened to today, Mike drummed for it. And he wrote all the drum parts and everything as well. And then Dave he produced the first track. So in addition to mastering everything, which by the way, what is give me like the elevator pitch of what mastering is.
What mastering is? Well, it's the final process in music and in music mixing. And I mean, basically you're creating the tone, the overall tone, kind of tweaking things, tweaking the compression, the limiting, the EQ, all that kind of stuff. You're kind of marrying things together, I guess is the best way of putting it, and making it so it's listenable on certain devices and certain platforms. I mean, these days the problem with mastering is people listen on so many different streaming platforms, and they all have different rules. So you kind of do your best to hit as much of that as you can, and kind of make it work on as many platforms as you can.
Right. So even way before the process of mastering, we have to get the recording and get the basic mixing and stuff down first. So that's like laying the entire foundation of the album, which is what Chris did. So Chris, I'd love if you were able to introduce yourself as well.
Yeah, hi. I'm Chris Demas. I did the recording and mixing of the record, and we did it at a pretty memorable time in the world. Late 2020, early
It
2021?
was the summer. Yeah, it was basically 2 years ago. No,
Yeah.
yeah, 2 years ago.
So that's crazy. That's definitely something I'll never forget, is having to work in that time and how to navigate that. And yeah, definitely something that I won't forget. But yeah, had a blast working with everyone. And Dave, I know we didn't get to like meet face to face for this project, but like I'm pretty sure that without you, the project wouldn't have came to me. So I appreciate that first and foremost. And yeah, I again just like thankful to have been a part of it. And I think listening back to it, I'm very happy with what we did.
Well, and Chris is a very talented drummer as well. And you're living in Toronto now, playing with, you're still recording and stuff with your studio over there, playing in Surf Dads.
Yeah, I play with Surf Dad still in Regina mostly, but I do come home to record here, and I do have a little cube in Toronto that I've been trying to record out of, but it's such a cube. It's really tough.
We have all had cubes in Toronto.
Yeah.
Yes, we have.
And finally, Rob, you were a part of the creative side mostly, in terms of not only playing a bunch of instruments, because you did the guitar and bass for pretty much the whole thing, guitar for quite a few tracks, but you also influenced the creative direction of the tracks by producing the album. So I'd love if you introduce yourself as well.
Sure. Yeah. I'm Rob Hillstead. I would be what I would consider to be a media producer. I make films and record music. This was one of my favorite recording experiences because I guess because I got so involved with all the processes, and I don't know. I felt like I was more of a facilitator for the creative side, but then it also gave me a chance to sort of play because I'm a musician at heart, and it was very challenging to sort of try and fall in line with all these much better players than me, and it was wonderful to see it come together in such a collaborative way. Because I did feel like everybody kind of got on board with sharing ideas and everybody was seeking the same kind of common goals, which is awesome.
One thing that was really interesting about this recording project is that it was a super small crew, and this was in part a function of it being COVID, like Chris was talking about. Yeah. It's not like we could have a bunch of people coming and going in the studio. So who you see on the screen is essentially like we did everything. So every person here contributed instrumentation in addition to Chris was writing guitar parts in addition to recording us, and Rob was playing bass in addition to producing, and Dave basically wrote everything for a track in addition to mastering. And so like everyone had like some creative hand in the final result, because ultimately what I brought was just a bunch of demos. I guess they were fully written skeletons, but it was just piano and vocals. So what we did is we showed up to the studio. We had 3 weeks. We could not do any more than that because Rob is a fancy film guy in Vancouver. So he had a limited time to work with us. We had a start and an end. And in that 3 weeks, we basically had to not just record the bones that I wrote, the vocals and piano. We then had to build on it. And how many jams did we have? Like Mike and Rob, I think Chris, you came to one of the jams too, but we had like two, maybe in my parents' garage. Yeah. And they were like pretty rusty. So
there was one us, yeah. I remember the one that I came to. I had a guitar with me and we were going over some of the stuff, but that was like, I think one of the first times I heard most of the songs as well. And yeah, I think that was awesome. I think there was actually a lot that went on in that one little jam that contributed to the rest of the record.
Like playing Rage Against the Machine.
We did do that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, very productive. Yeah, I remember, and we'll have to have a listen to Natural Feelings in a couple of minutes here. But I remember since we had a jam session, a very rusty one in my parents' garage. When we were playing Natural Feelings, I remember going inside and my parents were in there. They're like, "What are you playing, like a funeral march? Like, what is this like heavy dirge that we're just hearing the same dum 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 over and over again?" So I suppose when all you're hearing is from indoors, the bass of Natural Feelings, it does have that quality to it. So thank you everyone for coming to hang out. We are going to try to attempt to share some music. I haven't quite figured out how to log into YouTube on my phone yet, so I think I'm going to do that when we get the music playing. Because if anyone is saying anything while watching this, I am not able to see the comments at the moment, so I'm going to try to fix that. If there's like one of you out there who is saying things, that would be excellent, and I hope to find you. So thanks for joining us, Chris. I know you have to run. You've got a limited schedule here.
Yeah. Again, just wanted to say, like, nice to see everybody again. Dave, I wish we could have had you in the room as well. I'm sure that would have been a ton of fun. It's just awesome to sort of relive that month of just hectic recording every day from 9 to 5 in this short little Zoom panel. But I'm excited for everyone to take like a deep dive into the listening, and again, so thankful that that record got made, and I come back to it every now and then, and I'm excited to listen to it. Now I'm renewed with the thought of listening to it again after this, so I'm quite excited.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for all
I
your
would like
work.
to add one thing before Chris leaves, because I also brought him in to do one or two things on the drums, because as has been mentioned before, he's a very talented drummer.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, we want
Who
something
has a
really
YouTube channel.
busy. We want something really busy. We want something that fits in this. And Chris was just like, oh, I'll pull in these rototoms, and then and like first take, done. And I was just like, you son of a bee. Because
well, that's I appreciate you saying that. I do enjoy the use of rototoms. There was the best $60 I ever spent was buying those rototoms, and they look destroyed right now. They've just been used so much, but we found some good use of those.
The rototoms were the ones in Deer Disaster, right? Where you did all the. Okay, we'll point that out then when we're listening to that.
Yeah. There was a lot of percussion going on in that song.
Yeah, we kept adding to it. We wanted to make it bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you so much for coming out. Have a great rest of your night. And I'm gonna share my screen, and we will get this Natural Feelings music going.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Hope to see you guys all soon.
Thanks, Chris.
Cheers.
Take care, Chris.
See you.
Now, if there's any issues with my audio at any point, I do have the chat loaded up now, so someone can just let me know. Otherwise, any words before we get started? No words. Okay, here we go.
All your words.
No, not yet. I'm gonna mute myself as well in between tracks.
We'll never get out of here alive. What you love is the definition of what you fear, what you fear, what you fear. And what you love is the definition of what you fear, what you fear, what you fear. What you want, everything you can't see, everything you can't be, everything you don't need. And what you want, everything you got until you got me. Then everything I can't blame you, you can't blame me. These are natural feelings. A definition isn't
So, Natural Feelings, compressed Zoom version. I spent a minute or so fiddling around with the audio settings just to see if there was anything I could do about that. I think I might have better success with the next one. Anyway,
Actually,
Dave,
it sounded pretty good over here, actually, surprisingly.
it worked. It worked
Yeah,
on
yeah.
your end. Okay.
Yeah, I know. I noticed you switched to like stereo partway
I
through.
did. I figured you heard
That's what
when
it
I
was.
figured that out. Hey.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. I'm glad. So, since you basically helped write this whole track, the way that we did Natural Feelings is I sent the we wanted a guest producer. So I sent the vocals and the piano off to Dave. It's like, here, write a song with this. And Dave did his magic off by himself and then sent us something that sounded really great. I think the version you sent had electronic drums, and we were going to use that all the way up until the very last second. Then we had like a little emergency session where we had Mike record basically exactly what you did with electronic drums, but with acoustic drums. But that was really the only change we made. So I'd love to hear your perspective on writing this one.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the modern way of doing things for me now has been all about exactly what you're saying. Like, here, take this idea, and then I just kind of sit here by myself at this very computer and tinker, and like I have everything I need in the studio. Like I got E-drum. I got,
Apologies.
well, there you go. I have E-drums, I got keyboards in here. I got guitars, bass. I got pretty much anything I can play with. So yeah, I just sat at my computer and just tinkered away. And I've definitely gone more the electronic route as I get older. It seems like that's more what I'm into. So a lot of the stuff I did for it was definitely very, I don't know, inspired by kind of dancier stuff, I guess, but darker stuff too. Like I did a lot of pumping compression type things. Like the bass is all sidechain compressed with the drums, so it's all very wobbly kind of sounding and warbly. I also channeled my inner Victor for this one a bit because I did
Victor's
have
his brother.
yeah. Victor has obviously contributed to Criminal Kid a lot. So guitar wise, I really thought about what would he do tone wise, what would he do, if he was on this song. So that all the little guitar pieces are with that in mind for sure. I intentionally did that. And I was also listening to a lot of Perfect Circle, Eat the Elephant at the time, and and their guitar tones and lines are very much highly delayed, little fiddling things. So yeah, I don't know. That's kind of it. Like I just kind of felt it out and tried to bring out what I heard in it, and really just making it deep dark bass kind of track, dancey. Yeah.
Well, and it's not we actually collaborated on a track way back in the day, which I
Mhm.
believe still exists on your SoundCloud for anyone who wants to go
Yeah, it's on
hunting.
Bandcamp too. Yeah.
Is it on Bandcamp? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always a lot of fun working with you. And I feel like this is a good opportunity to mention that Dave has a band as well. And they're really awesome. They released an album roughly around the same time we did, right?
Yeah,
In
pretty close.
March or April.
The date escapes me now. It's all a blur. But
Yeah.
I mean it was spring. It was spring for sure.
Yeah, so check out Femme Fragile. Really, really awesome music. Like really, I like your album is great. So definitely recommend it in all sincerity, and not just because I'm your friend.
But you still have to recommend it as my friend.
I
too.
do. Yeah, it
I mean,
is. It is part of the.
there's no getting away. I like your album as well.
Oh, I think. Thank you.
and not out of obligation.
So we're gonna move on to Shiver in the Sun. This is a track that I had the seed of this idea since. I wonder if you guys can hear anything on my piano. But I wrote this one probably a decade ago, and it was just this like little piano line. I like the whole thing is kind of just these almost rocking octaves. But we managed to turn it into a really fast rock song. Mike, any thoughts about doing the drums for this one? Because the drums in Shiver in the Sun are really, really busy. And we also did add some extra percussive elements in this one as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't even classify this as too busy. I mean, we were trying to cover a Tool song once upon a time, which I would definitely classify as busy.
Lateralis.
Yeah, which was so many hours of work. actually, as opposed to talking about this one beforehand, I want to say that like the end of Shiver in the Sun, I think like the climax and then the falling action. So like the climax with all the drums crashing a little bit, I think is one of my favorite parts to listen to on the whole album. Just with the drumming, and I think we hit the tempo and the balance between hitting everything all the time and not hitting everything all the time.
Well, let's have a listen. I will say that this is this was the one I was the most stressed out to record out of every single track on this album, just because the vocals need to be so nimble. Like it's like it's fast and they gotta like hit in the right way. So I was panicking before we recorded it. Fortunately, it went smoother than I'd expected. Isn't that how recording works, right? Some songs you freak out about and they go great. Other songs are like, I got this in the bag, and then you fight with it all day and are a mess by the end of it because it's not what you wanted it to be. So this was one of those that I felt came together in a really unexpected way. All right, I'm gonna get my screen share going here. I'm gonna probably leave it on screen share now that I'm recording on Zoom. So we'll get this going and have at it.
In the sun, 'cause there's no other. I wanted to know, where will I go? I could waste away so slowly you wouldn't see. I wanted to know, where will I go? This high velocity curiosity. I wanted to know, what if I let go? I wanted to know, what if I let go? I wanted to know, Is there nothing left? Are these promises I swore to you I'd never given? Dreams are so much easier to live. Shadows in my moods. I wanted to know, where do we go? If nothing ever gets where it's going to. I wanted to know, why I can't move. So this high velocity curiosity. I already know, no, I
And there it is. That's Shiver in the Sun. I was listening to the tempo of this one, and it doesn't sound as fast to me now as it did when we recorded it. So I was just checking in my book, and I have the tempo for this one set to 150 beats per minute, which at the time, I believe we were going to record it slower. We were going to do like 140 or something like that. And we ended up boosting it up because it felt like it dragged. And at the time, it felt like, I can't play this fast. And now listening to it, it actually doesn't sound as fast as I remember in my adrenaline piano playing. I don't know about you guys.
You and Chris made it faster every time I tried it. And you're just like,
Yeah.
no, it's got to be faster. No, it's got to be faster. Which was, yeah, good. And I remember Chris talking to me about this one at one point because it wasn't a hard song to record, but like you said earlier, like busier, faster, etc., etc. But just trying to get the 16th notes and everything down perfectly in tempo. And I remember the last take we did, he was just like, that one, that's the one. But as an amazing drummer and a great mixing artist, he knew exactly what he was talking about, and he was right.
Well, and Chris did a lot of I think he did all of the guitar in that recording. So he definitely added, I think one of the challenges for me with Shiver in the Sun was how do you translate a piano song into a kind of fast rock song, because the two worlds don't often collide nicely. So I was pretty pleased with how that ended up working. So Persephone, the third track, is one that this was written with piano and drums. So the drums were conceived super early on. And I'm not sure, I know Rob was counting how many time signature changes there were when we were mapping it out and trying to figure out the exact layout on, I don't know if we were using Pro Tools or whatever, but wasn't it like 21 or something? I don't remember. But yeah, Mike, how was jamming in 7/8 and then 4/4 and then 3/4?
Yeah, well, it
Mixing it up.
switches between sevens and then 4/4 and then a little bit of 3/4 and then has a random extra beat inserted here or there. But to me, unless you're dancing along to this song, you don't really notice it.
God.
Like, it sounds very natural. So I think, and I'll take a little bit of credit for it, but I think we did a really good job writing and building this one to be a listenable song that's not too crazy weird.
Without the jarring sound of the time signature changes.
Yeah,
And
for anyone for the other people who are here, we made a previous album, and
yeah,
in this previous album, which is very, very different.
Mhm.
I don't know if the same people would be interested in it, but we have a song in 19/4 for most of it. So
Right, the last track 10, Under the Sun, or is it 11?
that's the last track.
Whatever the last one is.
And then
So
of course,
let's play Persephone. Also, I want to mention before we listen to it as well, the acoustic guitar in here was all written by Rob, and Rob did the bass as well. So Rob has a really heavy hand in the kind of artistic end results. And actually, one more thing I noticed in the Q&A, and I'm way behind. Jim's asking, what does it mean to produce an album? And I'd be curious if you could elevator pitch the producer role, because I made Dave do that with mastering. And you are muted, just in case you were about to start.
Is this for me?
Yes, this is for you.
Producer role.
Yeah.
Sort of had twofold. There's the creative side of producing where you're responsible for achieving a certain vision, and in this case it was your vision, and my goal was to try and add instruments and flesh out the raw demos that you supplied, but it also was very much a functional role in the sense that it was also like planning out studio sessions, use of time, and any of your budget and stuff like that too. So the producer role is sometimes creative, but mostly it is all of the organization, administration, and that sort of thing in one. And if I
Right.
were a team, I would have a bunch of people to do that for me. But in this particular case, we were very small, so
Very small.
we did a lot of it by ourselves.
And I think that I could be wrong about this as well, but the role of a producer kind of changes based on the project, because some producers will do stuff almost exclusively on the creative side, and other producers do things almost exclusively on the logistical side.
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of people say you produce a song if you've made the beat, and I think that maybe there's an aspect of that in all these people that call themselves music producers now. But it doesn't really entail the holistic element. But if the whole thing is on your computer, then I guess in a way it does.
Yeah, the language is changing for sure. I think you bring up a good point there. Like young people refer to things quite different than we would, I think, in terms of what these roles are. Yeah.
Us elder millennials.
For real. No, for real. It's true.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. Let's hop to Persephone. I believe I'm sharing my screen still, so I should be able to.
Now that I'm all better,
Persephone also has a music video that's very multi-talented. Rob made pretty much entirely by himself. I think we had one person help us the whole time. I can't remember, 2 people. It was a very, very small crew, but we spent a couple days in the woods filming that. He recorded everything, he edited everything, he put it together and made it make sense in a story. So if you haven't checked out our video for Persephone, it's really cool. It was awesome to finally work on a video project with Rob for that one.
I want to say one more thing about that song with, again, like all those time changes and things like that you had said. I still think that's one of my favorite songs on the album for sure. But I credit my ability a lot for like changing time signatures to actually something Dave told me when I was in like 8th or 9th grade.
Dave, did you know your wisdom would have such resonance? I want to hear this.
I was really high back then. I don't
but he was talking about one of his previous drummers, because in a band with Dave's younger brother Vic, we were doing we brought Dave in to do some singing for one song because we were doing some covers, and he had mentioned that their drummer always kind of followed and accented the vocals, and that was the thing that has still stuck with me. That's how I learned to do, say, crazy things like a song with 1 million time signature changes, things like that. Follow the vocals. The vocals is what myself as a drummer wants to fit in. A lot of drummers will say, follow the bass. That's important too. But I think you want to accent the same part that the main attraction is, which is the vocalist in most bands. And
every other instrumentalist is like shaking their fist in ire right now at you. The main attraction. But I hear what you're saying. Actually, this is an interesting segue. So we're going to listen to Dear Disaster next, which is the title track for the album. But it was not intended to be so. Rob, do you remember what this album used to be called? Back before you advised me to change it.
Conversations with You in My Head.
Yeah. So our first album was These Blue Walls Are Faking Freedom. I cannot help myself. I am a big fan of long, overly verbose, yes, album titles. Like Modest Mouse is known for these: good news for people who love bad news, that kind of thing. We Were Dead Before the Ship Even Sank. I love those kinds of titles. But Rob wisely advised me that, maybe it was a little bit of a generic title. Other bands were using similar titles. And so we decided to use Dear Disaster because it's got that alliteration. I don't know, it just seemed to encompass the feeling of the album. And ultimately, this track is a microcosm of the whole album, I think. So Michael will remember this. Rob will probably remember this too. Dear Disaster was the last song that the Criminal Kid OG back in 2012 wrote. And I remember we were having a jam session one day, and our band broke up basically that day after we'd practiced that song. And it's very fitting because the lyrics for Dear Disaster are, I want to tear the tower down, get reacquainted with the ground on the edge of a beautiful view. Where's it going to lead you? So it's all about, endings and the destruction of endings and the potential for new beginnings that those endings create, which is the general idea of the whole album. And I liked just to get a little bit nerdy about words, I liked Dear and Disaster together because it's two sides of the coin. So the coin would be the chaos of a transformative experience, and there's one half of it that's precious because it makes you who you are, and then the other half of it is pain because change and turmoil and disasters are painful, go figure. So I like the way those two words play together to encompass what I think makes up our experiences with big rocky change. I'm going to get off my soapbox now. Does anyone want to say anything before we get into Dear Disaster?
I just want to say that could be a fantastic emo band name or something like that. Like Like we had Dear
Yeah.
Solace and Weyburn. Dear Solace. That was Mike Fro. So I could be Dear Disaster and just piggyback off of his.
His success.
Yeah, I'll just do that.
Awesome. Let's
Oh, I like the
listen.
name. It's cool.
We did have another Q&A, and I might be able to answer this one, but I might want to turn it over to Dave or Rob before anyone has to go if we want to do it really quick. But it was, what is the difference between mixing and mastering? And I would say, for me, mastering is all of the little things that you don't notice until they're not there. It's the perfection part of it, whereas mixing is the previous part. But I'll let one of you expound on that.
Yeah, I'll do the Reader's Digest version. I mean, mixing is you take all the individual pieces and you blend them together in an interesting way. And that's when you add a lot of things like equalization, compression, reverb, all kinds of things. You put all the different sounds together in a really interesting way, and really mastering just takes the entirety of those sounds most of the time, and takes everything as one after it's been mixed and molds it a little further. I think that's the best way to look at it. Although sometimes mastering also takes stems. I've seen that happen where people mix and then they export stems to mastering engineers, and the mastering engineer messes with stems a bit more. And when I say stems, I mean, like the drums, the guitars, the vocals, like takes groups of instruments and plays with them a bit more. So yeah, there's a few different ways it can be done for sure.
So basically mixing is altering individual tracks to where they're going to fit in the overall picture of the song. Whereas mastering's altering like the whole thing, all the sounds together.
The master.
Exactly.
You affect the master, which is the final outputted version. That's the idea of mastering, and that you're affecting the way it sounds in a mass marketing sense is a bad way of putting it, but it's like you make the sculpture and it looks good in a certain light, but not every light. But you put a lacquer on it and it looks good no matter how you look at it. If that makes sense. So the mastering is what makes it look, and what makes it shine, essentially.
There is a signature, a stamp on it too from some mastering engineers. Like you can, it's hard to hear for the average person probably, but there is a certain sonic stamp that some mastering engineers bring to a project, right? There's some famous ones who you're just like, oh yeah, like that's their kind of signature sonic preference.
Out of curiosity, do you have a good example off the top of your head?
Oh, names escape me, and I'm trying to think of the guy who masters all Trent Reznor stuff. I've talked to him before, actually. Tim, is it Tim? I can't remember. He's really accessible, actually. You can just email the guy; he'll talk to you. But everything that he does kind of has this analog, warm kind of thing to it that I can't really quite describe. But he did a lot of like the really heavy stuff in the 90s and the early 2000s, and I think he's still doing a lot of that. It's Tim Baker. I think that's his name, Tim Baker, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, like you can just kind of hear his sound on everything. Like even though certain albums are mixed differently, there's just something about the polish that he puts on that's very specific.
Cool. All right, I'm gonna get this started. Let's have a listen to Dear Disaster.
Tower down, get reacquainted with the ground, on the edge of a beautiful view. Where's it gonna lead you? Close inside, the little voice that cannot lie, and the truth won't sleep, it'll haunt your dreams when you know you gotta let it go.
and that's about where we actually have a really cool segue into Hostage. So if you're listening on Spotify or wherever else, you can access this album. It's Dear Disaster by the Criminal Kid. But it seamlessly transitions into the next with the feedback. Oh, there's so many things that I want to mention about that, but I'll try to keep it as brief as I can. First, I would be remiss if I did not mention that this was a track written by Vic Roman, who was in the original Criminal Kid. So the guitar part of this, that the whole thing rests on, that whole pattern was him on guitar. So we had him in the studio to record that one. I definitely forgot to mention that. The other thing that I wanted to mention is there's a lot of, when Chris at the beginning of this call mentioned the rototoms, that was this track. So in the end, I kept saying, I was like, it's not chaotic enough. It's not chaotic enough. So we added things like the rototoms, and then Rob went in and added a whole bunch of feedback to like bring out the intensity, which I think the track needed. But I'd love if you wanted to talk about that a bit more.
Well, the feedback was definitely my favorite part about it. I love experimenting, and it's a good opportunity to sit. And Dave's had to endure it a couple other times.
I had to laugh a little bit.
3 or 4 hours making feedback sounds. It can be agonizing to have to listen to the whole thing out of context. But you know, I did find great enjoyment in, and you know, like I have very eclectic influences in my music, including noise and drone-based music and stuff like that. So it was the opportunity to kind of bring in some broader influences as well. But
also,
I mean, Lart, go ahead.
No. I was just going to say, I haven't mentioned yet, but it should be mentioned that pretty much the entire album is organically created, in the sense that with the exception for a little bit of synth, Natural Feelings, there's a couple other tracks that have it. Everything was created live, in the sense of like it was actual piano, it was actual drums, like there was a performer behind it, including the feedback. But please.
Mm-hmm. And also to give credit to Chris Demas too, because this guy's such a natural. I spent 3 hours trying to get a couple good clips, and he just like sits down, could pinpoint exactly what he wants in the settings on the pedals, and I always admire that kind of accuracy
Wizardry.
and skill. Yeah, so it was no, it was a good time out. I'll remember that one fondly. Yeah.
I hate him for that. Because he can just sit down and get exactly what you want out right away, whether it's drums or mixing or things. Yeah, he knows what he's doing.
So one thing.
Can I add one more thing, or do you want to go? I was just going to say, this is another example, and again, credit to Vic for writing the original riff. But even though it's in a weird time signature, 7/4 is not, that common in popular music. But it sounds very natural. As long as you're not trying to dance to it, it fits.
I feel like that's a good caveat for most of the Criminal Kids music, as long as you're not trying to dance to it. This is the kind of album that I would encourage you to listen to in the dark in your room at night, weeping silently to yourself perhaps, or really loudly in the car, I guess works too. I've done that a couple times. So let's move forward to Hostage. One thing I want to say about Hostage, this is sort of it's probably the angstiest, most aggressive track on the album. But one thing that Rob really wanted to do, and I'll let you talk about this a little bit more, but you wanted me to do a one take song with the vocals.
Oh yeah, that was that one, eh?
It was this one. Yeah. So start to finish, I wasn't allowed to chop up the performance. I wasn't allowed to. We made this little stipulation to make it sound more natural.
Challenge, self-challenge.
Yeah. So I think we did about 3 takes of the vocals. And there is a little bit from different takes in it, but in broad sections. So for the most part, it is like one full take, start to finish, I believe. Which is different because all the vocals of all the other songs, maybe I'm recording a couple lines and then I'm nitpicking those lines for 10 minutes and then we move on. Yeah. So Dave, before we listen to this one, I wanted to ask you, because we're about the halfway point, Did you have like a pet favorite? Should I watch out for something to bug you about? What track did you really enjoy working on the most?
It's funny because I don't feel like I add a lot to mastering. Like, like that sounds terrible, but like as a mastering engineer, you kind of just enhance what's there sometimes too, right? So I don't know that I feel like I worked on something in a mastering sense, but I do think that I enjoyed All Your Words the most. I think maybe I had a bias because I had heard it before, or I was biased. Like Rob played the demo for me years ago, and so I already had it in my head. But I think I like how it turned out in this context. I think it was fleshed out well, and it just has the right vibe. Like I like kind of I think there's like a bit of an acoustic kind of guitar vibe in the background at times, and yeah, no, I felt like that was the kind of the most memorable, like earworm, enjoyable song, and it's like simple, but I kind of like that. Like I like stuff that's really parsed down now. So yeah, that's I mean, I don't typically pick favorites per se, but if I had to pick one, I guess I'd probably pick that one.
And Rob and Mike, this question will come back to you later, not yet, but I am putting an asterisk beside All Your Words then, because I probably have a couple things that I'd be curious to know your opinion on that one. But before we do that, let's have a listen to Hostage. You're really going to hear a lot of just rawness in this track. So not only did I do the full vocal take start to finish, but this song was largely written in a jam, especially the end. We didn't want to just do like the studio writing in little bits. We wanted to all play together. So there was a moment where all of us were together in the room, just kind of jamming out the ending. And I hope that kind of raw energy translates to the finished product.
I'm fine, fuck
is where Rob put all that kind of creepy sounds and the sound of the record kind of trailing out as we close the first kind of aggressive half of the album, and we transition into the much more melancholic second half, right? There it is.
That is the actual sound of my turntable. Like I recorded it myself.
You recorded your own turntable to do that, yeah.
Oh,
I
I,
did,
didn't
yeah,
know
yeah.
that actually.
I couldn't find a sample, so I just like, okay, well, middle of the night, it was quiet, so.
So one thing, I was reading the question about discussing the life cycle of a song, and one thing I wanted to mention, it's weird to write a song like Hostage, which was like every one of these songs conceptualized on the piano, because when I'm playing this in the dark in my basement all alone at night, and it's got an entirely different quality once you start adding in instruments. The whole vibe of the song changes, because when you're, I mean, is this it has a much more, I want to say, like evanescence-y kind of flow to it. So I find that by stacking in other instruments, it adds a lot of substance and oomph, which I kind of feel in there when I'm writing, but I can't really quite create on the piano. So I come in with these tracks, and then it depends on the song, but really what happens, Rob will fiddle around and write a bass line, and then we'll record the bass line, and then Chris or Rob will come in with a guitar line and then record that over top, almost like you're stacking layer upon layer. I guess the first layer would be drums after vocals and piano, because drums kind of glue everything together in a way that helps, I think, the other parts fit, almost like puzzle pieces in place.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of our what was our usual step recording style, and we swap it out once in a while where we do I think we did the bass before the drums on Shiver in the Sun, just to try and, I guess, because I had it in my head, and we hadn't yet completely finished the drums, so like that was just a circumstantial thing. Now, when it came to Hostage was different from how we recorded pretty much the rest of the album. As we sat down on the floor, I would believe it was the last day of recording, even in the morning, we knew we had to have this song finished, again to the end of the studio time to move on, guys. We didn't have time. Didn't have time to do it in the direction of step by step cleanly. So instead, we decided we would jam it out and use scratch tracks in order to get the stuff down the day. So for about 2 hours, 7 or 8 takes, we wrote the song. And by the 7th or 8th take, we were getting very close on drums. And I can't remember if it was only 1 or 2 past that, but once we got it through once, that was it. The drums were done, because we kept those tracks. Then me as the bassist, I went in and I recorded the bass line, and then Chris recorded his guitar line. So we ended up finishing the song in about half the amount of time by doing it that method, which of course is not why everybody wants to think about writing a song, isn't necessarily its efficiency of time. But also I was really impressed in the sense that it felt very like we were on fire. We were in like day 14 or something like that of being in the studio and playing. So we were all kind of like hitting our highs on that one. And ultimately we did change a little bit further on. Like I added some of those spooky sounds, and the guitar, the chorus changed, but most of the verses and the outro is just a mix of kind of what we did on the day and some supplementation. So it was largely what I enjoyed was a song that was crafted as a group in a studio, which was really fun. And we only did that with I think Natural Feelings. We crafted the chorus, the final part in the jam, and maybe a little bit of Shiver in the Sun. But I felt that a large majority of it, we kind of just, whoever recorded first reacted to what he had or she had to work with. The next person reacted, those people. Yeah, exactly. So I quite enjoyed the process behind Hostage, and the further it got conceptually, the more I felt it sort of created something a little deeper than your average rock song, I guess. But
And much more true to
very
how
Linger-like.
much more true to how Linger being Dave and Rob's band, which previous. I'm assuming you guys aren't really active at the moment, but you can.
We're
find it
still
on
just on
Spotify.
hiatus. Don't worry. Yeah.
Hiatus. Okay.
Albums worth of material unreleased, but
Yeah, it'll come again. Don't worry.
Indefinite hiatus.
Yeah.
So
Hopefully not.
So with One More Day, which is the next track, actually one more thing I wanted to say about Hostage, it's a little bit more true to how the Criminal Kid used to write. So Mike, you'll remember when we were in a band, we got together and jammed twice a week, and we wrote everything that way. Someone came in with an idea and we all jammed it, and then we'd all kind of work separately on it, come back, jam it again, that kind of thing. The songs were polished in performances, which is exactly the opposite of what happened with this album, where things were recorded as layers and stacked. So it's an entirely different approach, and like you said, Rob, it was nice to do something that felt a little bit more like traditional, like jam band kind of thing, as opposed to like the other side of it. But One More Day was my favorite. I think this is my favorite track on the album, and I don't think anyone else thinks that. I don't think it is a particularly well-loved song on this album, but I thought we took a risk with it, a creative risk. This one felt like I don't know. There was a way we could have done this that would have been very by the book, and Rob tossed away the book. And I'd love if you said a couple things about the whole first half being more dry and the second half transitioning to more of a wet sounded, like the concept, the kind of what was the idea behind that?
So it's kind of interesting, as I think that we in our early conceptual phase wanted to have Hostage to be the one that kind of had that starting as a being a record and then coming out and turning into something more, but it ended up keeping the conceptual part but not the aesthetic part. So when we got to One More Day, your stipulation or this challenge of the song was that every like part was supposed to be bigger than the last, and saying whatever that meant, not necessarily in terms of full volume, but like fuller and bigger and bigger. So that was an immense challenge to try and do that, and still like from a mixing sense, not starting this beginning of the song quiet and going loud, like that's the simple way of doing it. So we did it in terms of expanding instrumentation.
Like verse chorus structure, you tend to have like a louder chorus, quiet down for the verse, louder chorus, and you have these sort of bumps. But we imagine sort of like an upward swell to the kind of peak. So I find that this song is a slow burn. But I like the different guitar parts that you created. And Michael, when you were writing this on the drums as well, how was that like? I know this one was a challenge for you as well, because you couldn't just settle into a beat until the very end. You kind of had to just keep the tension building without actually having that like nice reliable beat that you can cozy into.
Well, it's kind of like everyone said so far. It was, I'm not going to say challenging, but it was difficult to build that rising to a climax without having it be like boring on the drums at the start. So you want to get busier, you want to get louder, but it has to start somewhere, it has to end somewhere. And this one was interesting just because of that, like climax till the end and then drop. So basically, if you think about literature, rising action, but no falling action at the end.
Yeah, just a very, very tiny one. Just there's like a little bit of a cliff at the very end. So have a listen to this one. I'm gonna play around with I changed it to speaker view. So now when I share my screen, and if I leave it on screen share, whoever's talking should appear on the screen for who's watching. All right, here we go. One more thing about this one too. I wrote this on guitar. I did not play guitar, and you were very happy that I did not attempt to play this one on guitar. But I wrote this one about a decade ago. Kind of, I'm really proud of these lyrics. They're very simple, but I feel like it's all about the foolishness of tentativeness. And I'm this is one where I'm like, I very rarely give self fives, but this is one of those moments.
One more day, then I'll think about jumping in with you. One more day of this toast in the swimming pool. Oh, look where the time go, suddenly older. Time spent watching, and now the water's cold. It eats me up. It eats me up, up inside. One more day, what if I can't afford to give up all I've got just to be close to you? Can't you see these clothes on my back are dry? And it's getting late, I think I'll just go back inside. It eats me up. It eats me up inside. It eats me One more day, waiting for the sun to rise, and all of these days flash before my eyes. Every snapshot lens focused on wanting. Oh, hoping just turned into haunting. It eats me up. It eats me up It eats me up, inside.
So that one, listening to it, I'm like, oh, this is a very like early 90s or mid 90s vibe to me. Something about the way it's been like mixed, and it all comes together at the end. So Dave, any parting words before you take off? And I just want to say thank you so much for being here, and also for all of your work putting the final shininess, the final sheen on the album, making the statue look good from all angles.
Well, I don't know if it looks good from all angles, but most angles. Yeah, no, you're welcome. It was great to revisit this. I mean, I sadly couldn't get involved in the actual studio production. I was at a time where I was still dealing with a lot of health stuff, and I didn't really. I was still working at my other job too, so I didn't really have the capacity to do that. But yeah, so it was good to at least still be involved in some capacity in different stages. So that was good. Thank you for that.
Yeah, it was great that you're still able to be a part of it, and hope we get a chance to collab in the future. Dave is definitely check out his project right now, Femme Fragile. They exist on all the places that you stream your music, as well as also are you still like you're producing podcast episodes as well, like Roman Empire Studios?
I should be.
You should be. Okay.
We're so behind right now. I mean, we've been the summer just.
You've been expanding kind of rapidly with your business right now.
Yeah. So like we do podcasting. Like you can check out gosh, I was gonna name my old podcast. No, you can check out the Creative Coliseum on all your podcasting platforms. Alicia has an episode on there, and we only have about I don't know if it's 7 episodes. I can't remember. But we are planning to do more. That's the hope that here as after summer dies down, that we'll do season 2 here and start interviewing some more people. And yeah, I mean, check out our studio, RomanEmpireStudios.com. We don't really do. I mostly do music for people I know and people I have established clients. So I don't take a lot of new music clients. But if you're into the film world or podcasting world, we're the audio experts of Regina. So hit us up.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for being here and sharing your words with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Good to see everybody.
Awesome. So we're going to move on to the most depressing track on the album. So when we talk about sitting in a dark room and crying, this is the one. Black Water, maybe not Rob's favorite on this one. I'd love to hear perspectives, but this one has an operatic quality to me. There's a couple things I want to say about the vocals, but then I'd love to hear your guys' opinion. Also, the Game of Thrones accidental reference that happened to be in this particular song. So we named this song Black Water, and then as we're writing it, Michael's writing the drums, and I'm like, no, make it sound like there's a distant like warship on the, like far away coming to shore. And then later the warship comes to shore. This is what he has to deal with, by the way, as a drummer. It's like, hey, Michael, can you be a distant warship? And then like over here, can you be a closer warship? How does that sound? Like people beating drums on a warship. Anyways, it turns out, I forgot about this, but there's the famous Game of Thrones famous Battle of Blackwater, where people are beating drums on the water on their warships. So there must have been like an intense subconscious memory of that, hence the title, which I didn't even know was going to connect with Game of Thrones.
I'm calling lies on accidental reference.
It was totally unconscious. I had no memory.
No, BS.
Hey, think what you want, man. So yeah, but the mood of this one's very operatic. Like whenever I sing this one, or when I was working on it, I mean, it's built on so many vocal layers. Like the most layering I've ever done. It's like a Beck song. I feel like Beck is known for doing 50, 60, 70 vocal tracks. And that's what this one ended up being. But it's very like, I just imagine that's sort of like a ballet almost of melodrama, but hopefully not too cheesy. Anything you guys want to say before we launch into this one?
That was I think that one I had was one of the toughest one for me in the bass side of things. And I remember that I ended up having to record that one while I had COVID. So it's a very dark time.
Yeah, much after we'd finished our recording session as well. Like this one.
Yeah, we were getting close to finishing. Yeah, that's right. We're just catching up. But yeah,
this is one of the ones that didn't turn out right on first go. So there's a few tracks on this album that in the 3-week span, it just didn't work, or one part of it didn't work for one reason or another. So the bass of this one was one that you worked
I think
on.
we recorded. Did we re-record the drums too? Didn't we? on
I
that
can't
one?
remember. That we re-recorded the drums for Precipice, which is the very last track
Precipice.
on this album.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, like a year after. So last minute changes were being made. Sometimes one thing I'll say, albums, there's like little things that you don't always notice right away, because with any creative project, you need the benefit of distance. If you're up close with it too much and you don't get that perspective, then you stop being able to hear it clearly. So sometimes what we would find with this project, as with most creative projects, you walk away for a month or two, you listen again and you're like, this is just not working. Like something about this is off. It's not fitting, like kind of what I'm hearing. Even if to other people it sounds fine. So lots of nitpicking did kind of happen for almost an entire year after we recorded this, prior to mastering.
Yeah, and it's kind of like Alicia and Rob said, it's a very common thing, and I mean, there's even a term for it in the music business. It's like, especially when you're re-recording things, it's pickups. And I think the same term is used in video production as well, but it's like sometimes you find something that's not working out, or you find something that you want to add, want to take away, so you re-record just that little bit afterwards.
So let's have a listen to Blackwater, and I'll get depressed together.
Loosen the string. I'm too strong to let it go. Feel the sting. Burning hands grasp this rope. I'm too proud to let you know. Up in the atmosphere, get carried away, but I'm too short to float. I'll steer it this way. I'm too lost in the smoke, too bright in the black, so I'll swim in the gray sky, swim in the gray sky, moving the tides just to try. Always headed for home. I'm too far to let it go, and I don't know if you find me here, but I'll go there anyway. I'm too lost in the smoke, too bright in the black, so I'll swim in the gray sky, swim in the gray
With the melodrama of that one, one of those lyrics, the sun will rise, but I don't know when. I think is a very obvious thing. I mean, everyone knows when the sun's going to rise. You can look it up. It's basic information. We always know it's going to happen. But I think in the midst of despair, even though you know that the sun's going to rise, metaphorically speaking, you feel in that moment that it never will. So I think I was trying to capture that sort of melodrama that's very real, but it's also exaggerated at the same time. So yeah, so that's tears were shed. And when we move into the next one, it's an entirely different vibe. So anything you guys want to say before we move on to all your words?
I definitely do, but maybe Rob does first if he wants to.
Nope, go ahead.
I want to take, just after that track, take a second to again appreciate production, mastering, mixing, because sorry, Alicia, as a song that was written and sung by you, that song is built by all of that. I'm not going to call it After Effects style things, but there was one point where the drums just mixed perfectly stereo. For anyone who doesn't know what that means, going from left to right, and exactly the way that I like them, because I'm a drummer, so I hate it when they're mixed backwards as opposed to the way that I'm sitting behind the kit. But that was perfect, and all those little touches made the song, plus the layering in the vocals. All of those things are just needed to give the song the oomph that makes it, I'm going to say it, an amazing song.
With a track like Black Water, the instrumentation itself is really sparse. So if, to your point, if like the mixing is not and the mastering isn't just so, it's going to be so flat and have no life to it. So you're right. That's this song would have died a tragic death had it not been for that. So all your words, I resisted this, by the way. I think, Rob, you're the one who talked me into this. Putting the most depressing song on the album next to the happiest, I will say, song on the album. All Your Words was written I wrote it in a night, like many, many years ago. I was in my early 20s. I had rekindled a thing with someone from the past who I ran into randomly, and there were, beers that were cheered and everything. So it was just kind of like that rush that you get, the rush of chaos and its joy and its exhilaration, its dopamine. That's what this song is. But we originally put it together as a Cat Has the Key song. Cat Has the Key being me and Rob's band from 2004 is when we started that. So
yeah, that's a classic one. I mean, that was always your song. I mean, when Cat Has the Key did it, it still was based off of your demo. I remember clearly there were two that you wrote on your own and brought to the band, and that was one of the two. Sparks, I think, was the other one, but
yeah. So this one was it was fine. I guess I wasn't originally planning on having this in the album because I didn't see how it fit. But you talked me into it.
That one I did, yeah.
Yeah.
I said we'd be remiss to not take advantage of these ones, yeah.
Well,
I think
and
I
if you're
still have a copy of it in my basement.
If you're telling a story, you need the full story. So you can't talk about breakups and disasters and things like that without also having a song that represents the kind of rush of it all, like the joy of it all. So ultimately it was a good decision, even though I didn't agree with you at first, that this was one to bring in.
Yeah, the other choice was a very dark and heavy guitar-based track.
I think you wrong?
Yeah, I think that was a second up, but
yeah, that would have been a good one too. But
not
punchy.
For this album. Yeah.
Not for this album. And this is the one that Dave mentioned as a pet favorite, being like simple and poppy and to the point. It's, the words, you'll memorize them after listening to it once because there's like 10 words on the whole song. I feel like it's very, very lyrically simple. But again, the rush of the moment is not about like spinning complex thoughts. It's something that's very simple. So
Yeah,
let's
off the
let's
cuff.
off the cuff. Yeah, let's have at her. And it's worth mentioning for this one as well that this is also a fun time signature one. It's in 7/4 or maybe 7/8. I guess it depends on which way you want to think about it. Because
7/4.
what pop song, what pop song doesn't benefit from a little bit of time signature fun?
I wish I could remember what you said. I wish I could remember what you said and hear all the ways that you said it and hear all the ways that you said it to me. I wanna remember all the words. I wanna remember it all. I wanna remember all the words. I wanna remember it all. I wish I could recall your body language. I wish I could recall your body language and see all the ways that you move and see all the ways that you moved with me. I wanna remember all the words. I wanna remember it all. I wanna remember all the words. I wanna remember it all. I wanna remember all the words. I wanna remember it all. I wanna remember all the words. I wanna remember it all. I wanna remember all the words. I wanna remember it all. I wanna remember all the words. I wanna remember it all. I wanna remember all the words. I wanna remember it all. I wanna remember all the words. I wanna remember it all. I wanna remember all the words. I wanna remember it all. I wanna remember all the words. I wanna remember it all. I wanna remember all the words. I wanna remember it all. I wanna remember all the words. I wanna remember it all.
I like that this one's a pop song, but the drums punch like a rock song still. So it has just that little bit of edge. Not a lot. This one's pretty more than edgy, of course, but I think that allows the album to feel a little bit more unified. It was the same with the very first track when it was originally electronic drums. It didn't fit with the whole picture. The drums needed to be mic all the way through. So that was just one thing that I appreciated about the way it was mixed. What
Yeah,
are you
and I don't-
waiting for? Oh, sorry. If you wanted to say
No.
anything, I'm gonna move on, but feel free to add any more to.
No, I was just gonna very quickly say it's the sound effect, and this happens during the mixing and mastering and production part of the album. Would you call it compression, Rob? Like to get the
Allows
sound
it to.
up?
Oh yeah, when we use the specific technique called side chain compression,
Yeah,
which
and
takes it in and it dims the rest of the track imperceptibly, or like quietens. Yeah, and allowing like the drums to kick through and yeah, but it's a psychological thing. You do it too much and then it becomes noticeable, and you do it the right amount, it just sounds punchy.
Yeah, and that's again because I've noticed it especially on a few tracks, because sometimes it stands out in the best possible way. So yeah, no, that's all I had to say, just to add for curious people.
Awesome. Very neat. That's not my wheelhouse at all. So I always love knowing what's going beyond the more abstract terminology that I use for these things. Um, what Are You Waiting For is the newest track in the sense that a lot of these were songs conceived many years ago, but What Are You Waiting For was written about a month before we went into the studio. It's kind of thrown in as it wasn't thrown in as a last minute addition. It fit, I think, immediately, but it is not a decade old like a lot of the others. And one thing that I did with this way long ago, like probably when I was a teenager, I wrote this it's like a minor seventh. It's a C minor seventh chord. And I had written this little idea. So I guess maybe this is a super old idea, but I wanted to do something. I just love the sound of that. I always wanted to write a song with that. So with What Are You Waiting For? That's the main line for the verse, and it's very melancholic. So the original piano and vocal, like come on, move on in my direction, get your feet on the ground, get your feet on the ground, has a much more like, it's way moodier. So I think what ended up happening when we put everything together, it actually turned into like kind of a like a pop song in a way that I didn't expect. So a lot of times when I would come into the studio with a song like this, I think what's really important is to not have too much of a preconceived idea of what the song's going to end up being. Because if I hold too tightly to any one particular outcome that I imagine for a song, then it might not grow in the way that it's sort of destined to. It's almost like, if you're using the classic metaphor that a song's a child, then the child's going to grow in its own way, according to its own sort of pattern. And there's, you can shape it and mold it, but you're not ultimately like, you're going to be a doctor, young lad, or whatever it happens to be. So I didn't want to be a doctor, didn't want to be the punishing parent for this song. And yeah, it was really cool how different the end result is from the solo piano version. I think we also threw in a... Mm-hmm.
I thought that this was one of the songs I think we kind of fooled around a bit within the jam session, but as you said, didn't really come to fruition until the tracks just started getting laid down. It took a completely different direction to me as well, is what I thought we kind of were going towards. And I remember recording the bass before the guitars, which was how we usually did it, and being regretful because when I heard Chris Demas put his kind of swing is not the right word, but like a little bit more expression, slow hand thing going in there. And I think I would have completely recorded the bass different. Just groovier. I guess I feel I kind of got boring. I laid it a certain way to set up for something, but then we went a different direction. Mm-hmm. But I did enjoy having something that sounded a little bit more band-like, I guess, instead of being like a big production. This did feel like a little bit more of a classic,
like bass, guitar, keyboard,
yeah,
synth,
exactly,
vocals, drums, yeah.
Just the I guess the what we had been normally accustomed to writing, I guess, before, longer ago. But
great. All right, well, let's spin it and we'll go from there.
Come on, move on in my direction. Get your feet on the ground, get your feet on the ground. Close the distance, all the pains and the waiting. Tell me what miracle are you waiting for? Come on, I think I know what you want. Come on, just stop looking at the ashes. It's just a reaction.
That drum finish is a little bit of an echo to the one song on the Criminal Kids first album where we had like a drum outro. It's just, when you are recording so many songs, you notice patterns, if you're ending things exactly the same way every single time. And one thing that we did consciously, and I will say Rob, much more than me, consciously thought about is, can you change an ending so that each song is just a little bit more distinct from each other? So I like having the drum trail out at the end too. Yeah, it just gives a little bit of a different feel. So yeah, so that's taking us to the last two. So Unravel is unless you guys wanted to say anything before I jump to Unravel.
Yeah, I'll add something just to what are you waiting for. I think rhythmically, I think that's my favorite song on the album, and probably second favorite just in general.
It's really syncopated.
Yeah, exactly. And again, I said this earlier, but that matching the drums with the vocals, like especially those stops right before the choruses. Yeah, I think just work perfectly. They sound great. And again, that sound that they have on the drums, the compression and everything. Yeah, awesome.
I'm always trying to do something a little bit different. I think one thing that I resist is sameness. When I am thinking about an album, I don't want to make every song sound like it's just kind of running into the next one. And I mean, to what extent I achieve that is debatable, of course, but that's the intention. A lot of my favorite artists have this sort of run-on sentence sound to their whole albums where each song does blend really nicely into the next and it's perfect and it's just right for them. That's absolutely not my approach. And one thing I was thinking about with What Are You Waiting For? I wanted to do with the harmonies something a little bit reminiscent of 90s R&B, which I really liked when I was younger. Just with the kind of riffing off the main, like in the chorus, there's the main vocals, but then there's also like vocals that kind of dance around and do different things on each iteration. That's kind of where my head was at when I was writing those. All right, so let's jump to. Mm-hmm.
Well, I was gonna say, I kind of like when you added that synth lead in there, I kind of imagined like you should be in sparkly glitter and like wearing a vest and doing mini mall openings, sounding kind of like Tiffany. I don't know why that's what I heard in it. That's like a throwback to the 80s pop somehow, just with that little bit of that synth.
Yeah, the synth reminded me of Metric a little bit too, because I feel like they do that kind of throwback sound really well, integrating synth with the rock. I like the Tiffany comparison. I did used to listen to Tiffany when I was younger, so
I knew it.
Yeah. I had her cassette tape.
Well, I'm not trying to big ourselves up, but it fits perfectly in the song, and it just adds that little extra poppy nature while still being a little bit rocky. But
although Chris did all the work on the sounds, like I basically played a tune and he found a sound, so that has way more of an impact. What we wanted to do different with Unravel is, again, an idea of I want every song to be its own little thing, its own little entity. Unravel was a risk because we did not make this a full band song. We decided, and when I'm saying we, I'm mostly talking about me and Rob, because we were kind of talking about how we were going to record this one. I had originally imagined Unravel with a Death Cab for Cutie like electronic drum sound in it, like kind of this upbeat percussion and a really slow, stark piano recording. I think my mental reference for that was a song called I don't remember how Brothers on Hotel Bed goes, but that's the one that I was kind of thinking about, I think, when I wrote it. So this one is just piano and vocals. Yeah, it's a really good song. Just piano and vocals and a little bit of synth, just to add a little something. But we wanted to see what would happen if we kept one song on the album really bare. And I mean, make of it what you will, but that was the idea behind it.
I remember too, part of the concept that we were going for at the time, like I'm highly influenced by the Trinity Sessions by Cowboy Junkies. And how
Ah,
how they recorded was with a single microphone just for the one album,
in
but
a
they
cathedral.
recorded in like an abandoned cathedral, and they just, by the placement of where people stood and where the mic was placed, a single mic, they mixed the song within the recording process itself. So I remember actually trying to convince you to go and do an actual recording with like a piano in a space, but
I think
it
it was
was
just a
COVID,
logistical. Yeah,
and
it was a logistical
it
issue.
was
Yeah.
trying to get someone over there to record it. We couldn't get that microphone. I would had to order it from Europe, pay thousands of dollars. Like, so we just mimicked sound digitally.
Mhm.
But that was the concept behind that one, aesthetically.
I think I found Humor Me for just the opening chords. Well, not quite right there. There we go. So that's Brothers on a Hotel Bed, Death Cab, just the opening chords. Such a beautiful song, but you will hear some inspiration for sure with the way Ben Gibbard, is that his name? Pulled it together on the piano. Anyway.
Yep, that's his name. You got it right.
First try.
Both of us lose it all, lose it all. We go, we domino. Both of us unravel, unravel. We know there's nothing we know. Both of us take the fall, take the fall. We float up to the stars. Look at us, we're not so far apart at all. Take the distance, could we make it ours? Take the distance, can we make it ours? I'm sorry for the worst of it. 100 reasons for the mess we're in. I'm sorry for the worst of it. And I'm sorry for the best. When it goes, when it goes, when it goes away. Both of us lose it all, lose it all, lose it all, lose it all, lose it all. Both of us unravel, 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 unravel. Look at us, we're not so far apart at all. Take the distance, can we make it hard? I'm sorry for the worst been dreaming us clean in the ruins. I'm sorry for the worst been, and I'm sorry for the best when it goes, when it goes, when it goes away.
I love that little edit that Chris did right at the very end, made it go blah, 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 kind of clip a little bit. That was just such a cool little detail that he added to a really tiny and bare track. So that one, being as stripped down as it was incredibly hard to record the vocals for, despite the fact that they were really quiet. It's also like a very kind of gut-wrenching song to try to sing as well. So that was a difficult one. I know that was a Rob, I think that was the track that you told me to have ice cream ready in the freezer. You
Oh, yeah.
advised that I go buy ice cream to eat afterwards because the sensory pleasure would kind of bring me back down to earth out of the kind of messed up headspace that you can get in, I think, sometimes when you're recording.
Yeah, I mean, that's this your method singing. Where you then for anyone that doesn't know, that means you were putting yourself into the emotional space in order to create the performance, as opposed to recreating performance and pretending to have the emotion. And that's something that for me, I go back and forth on as being a healthy artistic practice or not. You know,
Depends how well you can get out of it, right?
that's true. I know. I remember hearing of the producer for Korn, one of his early albums, would actually have Jonathan Davis on the floor and like yelling at him and like hitting him in order to get him upset enough to sound like he was, because he was actually that upset when he was singing. And it's, to me, I'm like, geez, I know he made a lot of money off of that, but why would, is it really worth it? Is it really worth it for what is maybe 1 or 2% more? But maybe it is, you know. Art is pain, I think, was the motto for my last 3 or 4 years of making movies and music. So
Life is pain,
kind of
art
comes
is
with
pain.
it. Life is pain. Life is suffering.
Life is pain. Yeah, exactly. Art is a
Yeah.
proxy for life, right?
You must suffer, Rob.
That is funny that they were just like beating him up though.
It's pretty crazy actually to hear how they did that one. Yeah, it's
yeah, we didn't get to that level, but I will say, for anyone who struggles with mental health issues, the ice cream tip is really solid. Like, I've applied that so many times after the album. Just the like tactile pleasure, like something that'll instantly kind of, I don't know, maybe it's like a chemical, like a brain chemical thing too, but there's something about like a physical sensation that can bring you out of your head if you're having like a panic attack or like an anxiety episode or something like that. That is like been a nice reverb effect from our recording session in my regular life.
Yeah,
I learned that from John. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, go ahead, Rob.
Just that specific technique I learned from John Rivero, who's a trauma expert, actually, and I worked with him on a documentary, and he was using that technique to help heal a bunch of kids who were recovering from a hurricane, tragic hurricane that hit their town. So
I think I watched that. Yeah, I watched that project with you one time. Yeah.
But anyway, you were saying.
It's a grounding thing, and everything. I have something that I carry with me in my pocket every single day that grounds me. If ice cream is your thing, then hey, have ice cream on hand.
Or chocolate or something, right?
Yeah, mental health is not a silly joke. It's a serious deal. So I hope if anyone's watching and they hear that, yeah, pay attention to it. It's not a bad thing. It's just a thing that's going on. Take care of yourselves.
And it's a funny segue to Precipice, the last song on the album, because this is what created the album in some sense. I remember recording a demo for this and sending it to Rob, and Rob asking if I was okay, being concerned for my mental health. And I was like, no, what are you talking about? This is a positive song. Like, I'll be okay, lost alone in the dark. And you're like, yeah, but lost alone in the dark. And the song itself is called Precipice, which can lend a different sort of imagery. So I do understand, sorry to concern you with this one. But if it wasn't for this one, the album might not have come to be in the first place. This is a song I wrote recently before we actually hopped into the studio, and was one of the reasons I think we decided to hop in the studio. Although it was a song we fought with. This one was wrestled into submission. It was done a few times entirely differently. Like we virtually scrapped the original recording of this one and then redid large parts of it, including the drums. And it ended up where it ended up. Do you guys have any words on this one?
Not really, but it turned out far better than what it had originally looked like. So like you said, it was a struggle.
We at least accomplished that much.
And I basically contributed nothing to the final bit. But
Sure you did. The whole drum track.
Oh, the drums. I think that
Yeah.
was to me, that was the turning point.
It
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
but yeah,
Putting
so
it
many
together.
changes, but leading to a good end product again.
This one, I imagine, Rob, I'd love to hear what you think about this one before we launch into the last track on the album. But this one I has like a walking pace to it. And when I first wrote it on piano, I kind of always imagined like walking, like it's a walking song. It's like I imagined myself walking on a sunny street in the fall or something, with this sort of quiet inner strength of, maybe literally everything's, maybe not literally, maybe most things are falling apart. Things are in shambles. Things are like at square one, sort of like incredibly raw. But there's this kind of inner fierceness that sustains momentum for each step being like each beat of the song kind of moving you, pushing you forward. So it feels like a bit of a triumph to me. I feel like it's a happy ending to a dark album, but other people like Rob perhaps might have a different take.
Well, I mean, I largely thought of this one as in aesthetic terms. Although I did listen to the demo for this one again recently, and I could imagine it going another way entirely as well. Like the interesting part about our direction, our methodology, I guess, is that you don't really, it's not until everything is done that you actually have a view of what it will finish sounding like. So this one was hard to guess, and I'm glad we did clamp down on redoing the things that kind of weren't up to the snuff of the rest of the album. Yeah, it turned out to be. I was very happy with the final version of it.
And before we listen to this also, I need to mention the album art was made by a friend of ours, Logan Fraser, who did the album art for the first album as well. So These Blue Walls Are Faking Freedom, the dude chilling in the house, same person, same artist. This was a hard fought album cover for him as well. There was a lot of back and forth iterations, but mostly on his part, there was a lot of perfectionism. He was kind of striving for the, he was in the minutiae. And there was a version before this that didn't end up, making the final cut, although perhaps it could have or should have. that had a lot more, I will say, like almost illustrative detail. That was really neat. But I know that was probably difficult for him to blow up the original one and do a second one. This one was meant to be the back cover originally. If you could conceptualize this as a dual-sided thing, maybe one day we'll print it out. And also to answer a question, yes, it is on Spotify. It's everywhere you'll stream. And as far as the lyrics go, the lyrics should be on all streaming platforms as well. I would go to thecriminalkid.com. On I think I have some social links up there. I believe all of the lyrics are available on Bandcamp. So I think if you go to thecriminalkid.bandcamp.com, I might have the URL wrong, so I would just go to the home site, which is going to be the hub for those things. You should be able to get the lyrics there as well. So let's finish this journey, you guys. Ooh, we made it. Let's wrap it up. You know, one thing we wanted to do with this was have a vocal ending only, like the vocals, the one trailing off, as a way to come full circle to the very beginning of the album, where Natural Feelings opens with basically just vocals as well. Sort of like this bare line that opens up into the journey of the album but closes in some ways where it started, but in some ways it's a whole other circle on the tree. Those are my abstract parting thoughts listening to that.
Circle on the tree?
Yeah, does that? Yeah, I was just bringing in a cat as the key thing in a very obscure way. So we did it. How was that
Digital high
journey?
five.
Yeah. Where's my camera? There it is. 2 years after the fact. From
No, I have to, I
recording.
guess, but
Don't leave me hanging. Well, thank you, Thomas Board.
yes, thank you very much.
What?
And the only thing I have to add to that, to the last song, very creepy, dark vocals, but in what I can only describe as the best possible way.
Creepy dark vocals is what I go for, so that's cool.
Because it is like, it's not necessarily the darkest song on the planet, but again, that quiet voice and things like that, I can take absolutely no credit for this, so I'm just congratulating you. Like, the recording of it and everything else just works so well.
There was a
with
lot
that
of
song.
layers in this one too. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, again, conceptually, it's just the quiet inner voice. Then there's like the chaos of the outer world, but there's this like quiet inner voice urging you onward, getting you through rough times, to say the very least. So that's why I thought it was a fairly positive note to end the album on. But it is, of course, a song about struggle and an album about struggle. There's the disaster side of the deer as well. But one thing that I'll just say about the title, and this will finish my kind of discussion on the album, is I like the journey from the start to finish as feeling like this it's like this little trinket of my past. It's like this little I remember like our memories creating it, my memories writing the songs, kind of memories that the songs are about. It's all in this package now that we created. So I have this like physical thing. I guess I don't literally have the album, but the digital music, it's like there's this record of this journey, which is very precious, even though it was very painful. And I like the title just for what it means to me in that sense. Any final words from you guys?
When are we doing the next one?
I have ideas, Rob. You don't even. Oh man, I haven't even allowed myself to.
Just about the same thing, but I was gonna say thanks for putting this together, because it's a lot of fun to revisit the album and just have a time and a space just to focus on it and look back, reflect, think about everything, and look forward. Because I've got a few ideas.
I've got a few ideas. This is the curse of being the creative person, is just I don't have time to write music right now and to make an album, and I don't have money either. Like, it's a lot of money to put it all together, but it's still just like this whisper that's kind of always, it's like the muse is always beckoning you to your shipwreck, right? Which is a little bit what it feels like, but I know that I'm not going to be able to resist that call forever. So thank you also for joining, Thomas. Really cool that you were hanging out and having listened with us. I mean, it's a little bit self-indulgence on our part, I think, to kind of look at our accomplishments publicly, but at the same time, we put so much love and energy and time and all of that into it. So it does feel good to share it with however many of you have happened to stop by and catch a little bit of this video. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. And thanks again to Dave and Chris, who were here earlier and to, they'll be on the recorded version that I put up a little bit later. It was great to have basically the whole group. The only one we didn't have is Vic, who contributed to one of the tracks as our original band member with Dear Disaster. But we just about had the entire group together. The
And
band is
Jeremy.
back. Yeah.
Don't forget Jeremy. He wanted to be here. He helped with. He's also another member of the
He's the other
band from
original,
the beginning. Didn't appear. I don't think he appeared on this album at all.
No.
But wanted to be here, couldn't. But he did contribute to some of the writing of some of the songs. So, and he's
And
a good
maybe we'll
friend
have him
of
on the
all
next
of
one.
ours. I would love that. So I'm
how
hoping.
it
I'm
goes.
hoping that happens.
I have to show you guys something. This is a little bit of a brag. I have my notes, which I largely didn't follow, about what was, this whole session. The plan. I like having a plan going into these things. And ending chat 9:20. Look at the time, guys. Who timed that out? There's my other my final self 5 moment in this call. So I think this is a good time to wrap things up. Thanks so much for joining, all of you who watched, and of course Rob and Mike, thanks for hanging out for the whole thing. I'm really happy. I assumed it was just going to be me in most of the second half, talking to myself, rambling on about Lord knows what. So it was nice that you guys were here to hang out as well.
Miss it for the world. It was great to be here, and always good to catch up with Rob and Dave and everyone else. So
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Groovy. All right, I'm going to shut this down. Have a good night, everyone.